Oh, baby, I'm so excited for today's episode. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Mind Your Hormones. I cannot wait to talk to you about this because these are 3 habits that I used to do literally all the time that are super, super common and that are really messing up your cycle and your fertility by dysregulating your blood sugar. And if you've listened to this podcast for a hot second, you know that I talk about blood sugar a lot because it's one of the major root causes of all hormonal imbalances. This is why it is the very first module of the Mind Your Hormones method, which if you're unfamiliar with that is, it's my online course, okay, that helps you balance your hormones, all the things. So anyway, we are going to be talking about these 3 habits, how they mess up your fertility, how they mess up your cycle, and why they dysregulate your blood sugar. And then, of course, you know the vibe. I'm going to be giving you tips that are like realistic for you to really combat these habits and start shifting them so that they aren't jacking up your blood sugar. Because again, the reason why your blood sugar is so important for your hormones is because your blood sugar levels are tied to your insulin levels. And insulin is a top tier hormone, meaning when it's off, it causes the domino effect and affects all the other hormones. Honestly, if any of your hormones are off, it's going to cause that domino effect. But insulin as well as cortisol, they're really like the top dogs. Like they are so important. And if that is off, it is 100% going to affect everything else, which is why one of the most important things you could do for your menstrual cycle, for your fertility, for your energy, for everything is to get your blood sugar under control. Because again, it doesn't just impact your reproductive hormones. It affects your cortisol, your DHA, your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, yes, all of that. But it's not just going, when your blood sugar is dysregulated, it's not only going to affect your cycle and your fertility. It's also going to impact your energy levels, your metabolism, your weight, your mental clarity, your moods. Literally, it's tied to everything. So this is one of the reasons all these habits that I did, which we're going to talk about, it's part of the reason why for so long, I had an irregular period. I wasn't getting my period. I had migraines. I had cramps. When I did get my period, I was popping Midol. It would be like 3 times a year, but I still was. I had facial hair growth. I had body rashes, IBS, all these things. It was all coming from mismanaged PCOS. I didn't even know I had at the time. But all of those symptoms will be healed and will be supported when you start balancing out your blood sugar. Obviously, that's not the only thing that we need to do, but it is absolutely one of the best places to start. And it's going to affect every single area of your body because again, your hormones are chemical messengers that flow through your bloodstream. So when something is off, it's going to affect literally everything else. So let's get into it. The 3 habits that we are talking about today are: number 1, drinking caffeine on an empty stomach; number 2, having sugar on its own; and number 3, skipping meals. Okay. So I'm raising my hand. I did all of these things multiple times over the years. Okay. So if you're like, holy shit, Corinne, I do literally all of these things, or I do one of them, 2 of them, whatever. You're not alone. Most people do a lot of these things, but what most people don't know is that it really is impacting their blood sugar. And we're going to talk about why. So let's start with the first one: caffeine on an empty stomach. I talk about this a ton. So if you haven't already listened to the episode that I did on caffeine specifically, I have 2 episodes on it. One just about caffeine and your fertility, and another one about how you can support yourself without totally giving up caffeine. So I'm going to link those below. Part of it is about this, is not having it on an empty stomach. The first thing that you put in your body during the day or in the morning sets the tone for your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So if the very first thing that you're consuming is caffeine, whether that's pre-workout, whether that's coffee, whatever it is for you, it spikes your blood sugar levels. It also negatively impacts your cortisol, but right now we're just talking about insulin and blood sugar levels, but it does impact your cortisol as well in a negative way, which I talk more about in the caffeine episode. So you could always go back to that after this. But so it's spiking your blood sugar, and what goes up must come down, which is why most people who are having coffee first thing in the morning also experience a mid-afternoon crash, or pre-workout in the morning. You experience a mid-afternoon crash that causes you to grab or go for another cup of coffee because you need another pick-me-up, because again, it's spiking your blood sugar. It's also spiking your cortisol levels in the morning. What goes up must come down. So you have that crash not only of your cortisol levels, but we're specifically talking about blood sugar. When your blood sugar crashes, you're going to feel fatigue, you're going to feel brain fog, you could feel shaky, you could feel irritable, you could get headaches, all of that stuff. So that's part of the reason why you might be, excuse me, that's part of the reason why you might be experiencing that mid-afternoon slump throughout the day. So instead of, if you're like, okay, Corinne, but I'm not ready to give up my caffeine. Again, I did a whole nother podcast episode on this. You could check that out. But if you're not fully ready for that, what I'm telling you to do is just to at least have a protein, fiber, and healthy fat-rich breakfast before you have your caffeine, whether it's your pre-workout or whether it's your coffee. Now, I know some of you are like, oh, but I work out first thing in the morning and I have to have my pre-workout before I work out. First of all, what I would say is, number one, do you really need the pre-workout? Do you really need it? Or do you really need to jack your cortisol levels up when you're about to do a workout that's going to increase your cortisol levels anyway? Is it just a mental thing that you think you need the pre-workout because you think you're getting a better workout, or because you want to sell these supplements, whatever it is? Like, really tap into that. Do you actually need it? Okay, is what I would say. And also, if you are going to still consume it, make it a priority to have some form of breakfast first so that your blood sugar levels are at least stabilized, okay? Because this is what's going to really give you the long-term benefits of not only seeing results from workouts, but having better energy, better metabolism, better thyroid function, better moods, better cycles, better fertility, all of the things, okay? So here's an example of a breakfast you could have. Because if you're like, I'm on the go, I don't have time to just make breakfast first thing in the morning, you could do something easy like overnight oats, okay? You could do, obviously all organic, rolled oats with almond milk, with a vegan protein powder. I personally love Truvani and Sun Warrior vegan protein powders. I'm a chocolate girl, but they have other flavors, obviously. You could do mixed berries with that. 2 tablespoons of some type of healthy fat, 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds or pumpkin seeds or almond butter, or you could even just do 2 tablespoons of nuts, not even butter, just like walnuts or cashews or something like that, with some cinnamon. Mix it up in a mason jar, put it in the fridge overnight. In the morning, it'll be ready for you. Okay. You could do that warm too, if you have time to actually do it in the morning. But if you want something quick, overnight oats is a really awesome option. Obviously, smoothies are a great option, but you want to make sure it has that protein, fiber, and healthy fat. So that's just an option for you. Overnight oats with almond milk, vegan protein powder, mixed berries, 2 tablespoons of a healthy fat, some cinnamon, you're good to go. Okay. So that is number 1. Number 2 is having sugar on its own. Now, obviously, we know if we're talking about blood sugar, that sugar is going to negatively impact our blood sugar. Okay. Like, everyone knows this at this point, that we don't just want to have a ton of sugar all the time. It's not good for your body, but it negatively impacts it even more when you're having the sugar on its own, rather than having it paired with a protein or with a healthy fat, or just after a meal. So what I mean by this is, of course, when I'm talking about sugar, we're talking about like cakes, cookies, things like that. But even for people who are really working on balancing out their hormone imbalances, it is also really, really important that you aren't even having fruit by itself. Specifically if you have PCOS or if you're in a really dysregulated place. So if you're like having an apple for a snack, instead have an apple with almond butter, because the almond butter, the healthy fats that are in the almond butter, it's like putting a coat on your fruits, on the sugar, so that it slows down the spike that you're having. Okay. So it works for fruit as well. So you could have, whatever like fruit that you're having with almond butter, or you could do it even with like a handful of nuts or something like that. But then even if you're talking about like, if you're going to have a cookie or like coconut ice cream or whatever, have it right after your balanced blood sugar meal, right after your protein, fiber, and healthy fat rich meal. So your blood sugar is already stabilized. So instead of just like having it throughout the day as like a snack or something, like you're just like, oh, I just want to grab a cookie really quick. We don't want to do that on its own. It's way more beneficial. Obviously, it still is not like, ideal, but whatever. It's more important for you to have this sugar after your meal. Like if you're at a party, obviously most of the time dessert is after a meal, but sometimes it's like hours after. And it's actually better to have it closer to when you had your meal, so that your blood sugar is stabilized. You still have that protein, healthy fat, and fiber all in there to slow down the absorption of that sugar spike. Okay. So it's not always about cutting everything out. It's about pairing things properly so that you can support yourself better when you are consuming these things. Again, that doesn't mean to just like have all types of sugar all the time, but this is how you can kind of like hack your blood sugar in a way, so that it does support you more. Okay, so that is number 2. Number 3 is skipping meals. This is huge. And this is something that a lot of people do who are obviously, if you're listening to this, I know you're ambitious. I know you're doing a lot of things. Maybe you're a mom. Maybe you are an entrepreneur. Maybe you have a full-time job and you're running a side hustle. Maybe you're a nurse and you work long hours. Like everybody is busy in their own way. So skipping meals is something that a lot of people face. And also a lot of people think that we could just skip meals because it's going to help us actually lose weight, which is things that we were taught, or just like societal things like, oh, obviously the less calories you have, the less food you're eating, the more you're going to lose weight. That does not fly. That's not how your hormones work. We're not fully getting into that right now because I'll be here forever. But when you are skipping meals, what happens is it causes your blood sugar to crash along with your energy levels. Okay. So we don't want to skip breakfast. For sure, don't want to skip breakfast. We don't want to skip lunch. We don't want to skip any meals. Okay. So what I want you to aim to do is to have 3 main meals a day. Okay. That could also look like having a snack in between, depending on your specific body type, depending on your energy levels, depending on your energy output, I should say, how much you're maybe moving your body. Everybody is different with that. Obviously, I would need to know you a little bit closer capacity, but in general, aiming to have about 3 main meals a day with possibly a snack in between when needed is what we want to go for. And this could seem overwhelming for people if they're like, okay, but like I have to prep 3 meals. Like, how am I going to do that? Having things prepped on hand and having leftovers so you could create quick meals and grab and go is so helpful. So like prepping smoothies in advance is so easy, whether it's for breakfast, whether it's for a mid-afternoon snack, whatever it is. Again, always focusing on that protein, fiber, and healthy fat. Doing the overnight oats for breakfast so it's ready for you, making things ahead of time, like making a big batch of quinoa, making a big batch of beans, whether you cook the beans from scratch or if you just get them in a BPA-free box or something like that, you could do that. Just cook them ahead of time. You can have like mixed, I always buy the organic, already pre-washed mixed greens. So I don't have to sit there and chop and wash and do all that stuff. It's just like the path of least resistance. So you could get that. You could roast a bunch of veggies ahead of time, have them in your fridge, have cut up veggie sticks in your fridge so that you could just like grab and go and you can mix and match. So for example, you could do like if you have a big batch of quinoa or a big batch of beans like made for the week or brown rice, whatever it is, you could throw some cooked quinoa, some beans on that pre-washed, you could do the cooked quinoa and some beans. Oh, wait, maybe I did say that. On the pre-washed mixed greens as like a salad. You could throw half an avocado on there, maybe cut up a couple tomatoes to get some color. You're good to go. Squeeze some lemon on there, maybe a little apple cider vinegar, olive oil, whatever it is. You're good to go. You could even do it separately without a salad. You could just do the quinoa, the beans. Maybe if you roasted some veggies, throw that on there, half an avocado, you have another meal right there. You could do veggie sticks with hummus for a quick snack. Again, smoothies are really easy. So having these easy things on hand is what's going to make it easier for you to not skip meals. And when you do cook, if you're cooking dinner or whatever you're making, make way more than you need so you can have leftovers for the next day, even whether it's the same exact meal the next day or you mix and match it with something else. It's going to be so much more supportive for you than cooking every single thing from scratch all the time, which is just not feasible. So those are the 3 habits you want to avoid so they're not jacking up not only your cycle and your fertility, but literally your metabolism, your energy, moods, all of it. And some tips for you to start really balancing out that blood sugar, because again, I cannot stress it enough. When you make these small shifts to support your blood sugar, you are going to see a massive difference in not only how you feel day to day, but it's going to support your menstrual cycle. It's going to support your fertility. It is so freaking important. I will say it over and over and over again. This is why it is not only the first module in the Mind Your Hormones method, but it's probably the most extensive module in the Mind Your Hormones method. The other modules we focus on are the other major root causes of hormone imbalances, like nourishing your nervous system, nurturing your gut and reducing inflammation, nutrient deficiencies and making sure that we are not nutrient deficient, supporting your liver detoxification pathways. Like, these are the other things that we focus on because that is the recipe for success. The main thing that you want to focus on when your hormones are out of balance is obviously addressing the root cause. Where are these coming from? Where are these symptoms coming from? Why are my hormones out of balance? What is going on? Why are none of the things I'm doing working? It's because you have to address the body as a whole. Your blood sugar, your nervous system, your gut, your liver, your nutrients. Like, this is what causes success no matter what your hormone imbalance is, because when those functions, when those organs, when those systems in your body are functioning optimally, it is a guarantee that your hormones are going to balance out, which is why the Mind Your Hormones method is so effective and why I'm literally obsessed with it and talk about it all the time. Because I know if you're listening to this and you are someone who's on that path, and maybe you have an irregular period, or it's painful, you have PMS, or you have low energy, or your sex drive is shot, you want to stop birth control, you want to naturally conceive, like, this is the path, the step-by-step roadmap that's going to support you in getting where you want to go and just literally feeling your absolute best in the process and feeling good in your body. So if you are interested in that, you could join at any time. The link is always in the show notes. You could check it out. I would love to support you in that way, but I hope that this episode was helpful for you. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what tip you're going to focus on. Again, take it one step at a time. If you're like, Corinne, right now I'm having caffeine on an empty stomach, I have sugar on its own, I'm skipping meals, like I'm doing all the things, just start with one thing and go from there. What I would start with is the first thing we talked about, is not having caffeine on an empty stomach. That is the number one thing I would start with. Then I would focus on not skipping meals, and then I would focus on the sugar on its own. That's like the order of importance. That's going to really give you the biggest bang for your buck. So I hope you love this episode. I so appreciate you sharing this with friends and tagging me on Instagram. When you share it, it makes me so happy to know that you're vibing with this podcast. It's growing so much, and I appreciate it more than you know. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I'll talk to you soon.